Hello and welcome to True Crime and the Court of Public Opinion. I'm Alexis Knight, and this episode, it's different, guys. Lots going on. This is not about fear. It's not about outrage. This episode is about information for you. I'm going to be talking about a couple of things, but first up, I wanted to do this episode because what just happened in LA, this wasn't random. This was not just a riot. This was a blueprint, and if you don't understand it, you'll miss what's coming next. This episode is for anyone who's felt like something didn't add up with this and a lot of stuff lately. The story just shifted too quickly. The fire vanished the moment the cameras turned. I mean, you're not crazy for feeling that. You're not, and you're not alone. Because while the public focused on ICE raids and protest chants, then we had the administration. They're taking decisive action, stepping in. We have the Guard and the Marines engaged, and order was restored. But now California doesn't thank them. Governor Newsom didn't hold a press conference about peace, something that we might have expected, like, hey, what's the follow-up here? No. And really, America, that's something that we are used to. Let's not forget, and we should demand these kinds of things. We need the debrief about what happened, and we deserve it every time. But in this case, we got silence and then a lawsuit. The governor has filed a lawsuit against the federal government. I'm sure you've heard that by now. And that's where the story really begins. Now, today's episode is not here just to recap the headlines, not today. It's here to fight the ignorance that really has been overtaking the public. We've all felt it. And it's not because you're not smart. It's because the noise is so loud out there and so constant. You can't hear what's actually going on, and that's why I'm here. I'm here to give you that space and to show you what really happened, and to give you the knowledge to understand what is coming next in your own country, even this year. I'm going to start with LA. And if you stick with me, you will walk away understanding something most people still don't, maybe still refuse to. When things happen this fast and this clean, this was not just chaos. And that's LA. But everything's connected today, all right? Because then, after we deal with LA, we're going to get to that bill that no one understands, the one they're calling big and beautiful. All right? So lots going on, lots of information today. Let's get into it. All right, now, bear with me. Let's start where it all started, with the flashpoint. Okay, ICE raids, they're not new, guys. This has been happening. So I love how this is getting thrown around everywhere as some big deal. ICE raids. They've been happening for a very long time. But the ones that lit up LA this time, I mean, they weren't normal, okay? They weren't normal. They weren't quiet operations in the early hours of the morning, all right? Why haven't you heard about ICE until recently? Think about that, okay? These were not quiet. They weren't targeted removals with minimal exposure, like what usually happens, so that it doesn't disrupt Americans, all right? We don't get notified every time a criminal is arrested. These were loud. They were very public. They were filmed by film crews, and they were meant to be. We saw footage of ICE agents storming apartments, detaining entire families, and dragging people out in front of their children. And whether you believe in strict immigration enforcement or not, okay, we're not taking sides in this podcast. This is a podcast where we can think about the facts clearly, okay? Probably one of the only places you can do that. So if you can settle down for a second and not worry about the sides, because really the sides don't matter anymore. If we'll just deal with that later. But if you can, and we can discuss what's going on, you might actually get some information today. I mean, this footage that we were all watching did exactly what it was supposed to do. It got a reaction, and we all reacted, right? How could you not? The city erupted. I mean, not because of a single policy, not because of a single injustice, because someone struck the emotional nerve in all of us and struck it hard. And guess what? It worked, right? I mean, thousands gathered almost instantly, as if this were something that never happens ever and is outrageous. It started with peaceful chants. That's what always happens. And then it ends in a burning disaster, which also seems to always happen lately, right? Did you see what happened in France? I mean, what's up? We have burning dumpsters, smashed windows, and tactical shields on Melrose. Okay, and here's what I want to say clearly before we go any further. The people who showed up to protest, very real, okay? We can't lose sight of that because that's what happens. It's sort of like, that happens and then all the other stuff happens. And the other stuff is what gets all of the attention. I mean, these people, they had real anger. They had real grief. They have real grief. Fear for their families, their neighbors, their communities. All of this is real. That part, not staged. Not staged. But then what happened after they arrived? Okay? Everything that happened after they arrived, that was all staged. And we've seen it before. Let's take a look. I mean, the timeline was just too perfect. The escalation was very quick. And the response was very clean. I mean, within 48 hours, guys, LA was on fire. And all of us were watching, right? The whole country. That's the moment this shifted from emotion to strategy. So the playbook, right? They have you hooked with the emotion. They play something for you that's happening all over the country every day. And they get us emotionally. Boom. Now we're in. Okay? First question I want you to ask when this kind of thing happens is, all right, well, who's benefiting from all this emotional chaos? When the public, if you think about it, the public cannot come together on much, right? If we could all come together and say we don't want to pay taxes, we would never have to pay taxes again. That's how easy that is. But we can't ever come together like that. But here we can when we're responding. Don't you find that interesting? Because, I mean, we're all pulling together with this big emotion and we're not benefiting from much. The people aren't benefiting from the event. The local business owners, they're not benefiting. Not the local residents, who now had to choose between joining this crowd or staying inside and hoping their windows held. How insane. The ones who benefit are always the ones who can use the chaos to justify a calculated response. And that's exactly what we saw. Let's walk it. Okay, step by step. Step 1, emotional ignition. ICE raids, deliberately visible. Heavy-handed, detainments. And camera crews already there. Like a reality show. You don't get that kind of public reaction unless you hit the nerve. And then hold it down. I mean, if we all paid attention to body cam videos, those shows, I mean, wow, we really took to this. They were there professionally filming this. Then, protest ignition. We see that all the time. I mean, within hours, social media campaigns, TikTok calls to action, free rides organized, crowd control overwhelmed. This footage wasn't just shared, it was amplified by blue check accounts, influencers, and media outlets who'd all been quiet the day before. And suddenly, it's everyone to LA. Suddenly, it's another moment. Except this one felt different, didn't it? Because it moved faster. It didn't swell. This thing just spiked. But then we always have the delay, right? And this is the part that most people miss. The delay that happens between chaos and control. For nearly 3 days, the city burned. The mayor asked for calm. The city council made all their statements, and the police held their loose perimeters, right? There was no crackdown, no state emergency, no national announcement, no deployment. That is not oversight. That's not handling this. We're always on the receiving end, listening, standing by because it's too awful to try to say something, right? It's like rude. But they were not cracking down on this. They could have stopped this. Instead, they gave this whole thing permission. When a government wants to shut something down, guys, they can do it. Give me a break. Have we forgotten that, or do we forget in the moment because they just don't remind us? We've seen it 100 times. They shut down convoys. We go to war even. They shut down airports. They shut down church services, even little farmers' markets. But somehow they could not shut down this riot. Did you notice they didn't even really try until someone else did? That leads me to step 4, the federal trigger. When the administration finally moved, it was then immediate. The president didn't hold a press conference. He did not wait for any ratings. He invoked federal authority authorized Title 10 deployment, and he gave the order. We got 4,000 National Guard troops, 700 Marines, joint directive to support ICE, protect property, and enforce curfews. And within 24 hours, the protests, they just vanished, gone. It's like they were never there. The feed cut, the fires stopped, the social media pressure dried up overnight. Now ask yourself, does something that massive end that fast? How do all those upset people just decide they're not upset anymore and go home? I mean, how does a city erupt and then go to complete silence like it was just a glitch in our matrix? Because that's not collapse, that is coordination. We need to be smarter at what we are looking at. Scrolling feeds, watching TV for hours, we're not noticing the details, guys. You don't get that kind of immediate calm unless someone planned for both the rise and the fall. And if you don't see the choreography here, it's because it was designed to look like chaos until it isn't. They can just end it. You don't care. You're on to the next thing, and they know that. Let's go deeper. Because what you're watching here isn't just a riot response. You're watching a psychological pattern, one that's being rehearsed in public in real time. It's happening, guys, every day. The trigger is not accidental. The escalation is not spontaneous. I know it feels like it sometimes. The silence is not natural. This is all part of the sequence, and I'm trying to help show you that this is a playbook. That sequence serves a purpose. Show the people what control looks like, and then shift the blame for using it. Shift that blame. And here's where LA becomes something much bigger than a city protest. The moment calm was restored, that's when the lawsuit dropped. Pretty shocking. Newsom sued the administration for using federal troops in California on their soil without his consent. And this is an interesting piece. He didn't sue during the chaos, like, hey, stop what you are doing immediately. He did not sue when the windows were breaking. He didn't sue when residents were begging for intervention. Did you see that on your news? No, he sued after everything was done, after it all had worked. And that tells you everything you need to know. That's where it is. Those are the facts. This was not about protecting people, their local businesses, their homes, helping them feel secure. This was about preserving control. These riots can be shut down, guys. We have been trained to forget that riots can happen and just stay away and oh my goodness. No, this is not the way of America. We don't allow violence. Protests are not burning cars and buildings and bringing vans and stealing things. That's not a protest. Let's say this clearly, okay? Los Angeles was the testing ground. And you know what was interesting? I heard somewhere on the news they said, hey, we won't be tested. We won't have tests on us in LA. But LA was the test. So sometimes when you hear a message, it really is the exact opposite. And that's also by design also. LA was the testing ground for all of us. The ICE raids were the spark. The protests were the fuel, of course. The delay was the oxygen. And the federal deployment was the suppression. And now the lawsuit, here it comes, and that's the real objective. The whole thing, start to finish, followed a script. And I'm giving it to you. But most people never saw the page turn. I'm giving it to you. And here's what scares me the most. This whole thing worked, and it always does. People got mad. People got scared. People got distracted. But no one got clear. No one stopped to ask, why was the media presence so perfect on day 1, but then gone by day 4? And not all the media was allowed in, by the way. Why were the same influencers who called people into the streets suddenly silent? You have to pay attention. I mean, why did the footage just go dark when the guards stepped in? Why didn't we get to see any of that? And why is the narrative now focused on overreach, not outcomes? The people who showed up to protest, they meant it. And they got drowned out. The system that allowed this whole thing to erupt and then collapsed them, it didn't care about the original message. It cared about what they could get out of it, the result. And the result was a perfectly timed legal and political maneuver to pit state sovereignty against national authority. So here, this play really begins. This thing used real emotions on you. It took your energy. It used real suffering of real people in LA. And it ended the second it got what it needed, and not a minute before. But it could have. So, I mean, if you're sitting there thinking, why did this all feel so weird? It was so fast. It didn't even seem real. You are not wrong. I mean, it wasn't fake. It was tactical. That's the new playbook. And LA was the opening scene. When the National Guard rolls in, it usually means one of two things, if you're not familiar. Either things are out of control, or someone finally decided to take control. Now, in the case of LA, it was both things. But here's what the public didn't expect. The National Guard didn't just show up, they actually engaged. This was not a symbolic photo op. This was not a parade of military vehicles parked in front of City Hall. This was real intervention, strategic, rapid, and surgical, and it worked. And here's how they were able to act. And this is something that you want to know about. People are talking about it on the radio. It's all over. So let me explain. Normally, the National Guard cannot act without a state governor's green light. That's how it works. They can show up and hold a crowd, but they're not allowed to engage in local policing unless the local governor says it's okay. And that is because of something called posse comitatus. This is a law meant to keep the military out of domestic policing. But there is a federal override written into Title 10, Section 12406 of the U.S. Code. All right, now you really know something. And this says that if a state is unable or unwilling to suppress insurrection, okay, if they will not stop or if they are helping to let it go on, then the president can federalize the Guard without asking for permission. And that is what happened here. California did not call them in. The president did, and legally he could. And this is where the argument is going to get very confusing out there. The only reason this can happen, and I will say it again, is if the state is unable or unwilling to suppress an insurrection. And that was what was happening here. And so the federal government did what they had to do in order to stop this. And this is going to be in the news all day long for days. This act, what the president did, what the governor's saying. And this is the play that we're all going to be sitting in front of that was set up for us. And this is how it works. Okay, so that is what that is. Really important information. Again, you're going to hear about it. Just wait and see. You're hearing about it now, really. It's in the news already. But let's get specific here, okay? Because they're not showing you this stuff either. After 3 days of chaos, okay, ICE was under siege. Local law enforcement was overextended. City leadership was paralyzed. And so the White House did have a choice to make. It is the obligation to the country. Let it burn and hope California calls for help, because something must be wrong if they can't stop this or step in before the ground lost all structure. Have you seen what little videos they're allowed to pass around? Because this is devastating. Under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, he did federalize the National Guard, which I just explained, and he also activated the U.S. Marines under direct executive authority, and this is very rare. It bypasses all state-level command, and it sends a message. Okay, we're done waiting. This thing needs to get under control. That's what's been happening behind the scenes, okay? The numbers: 4,000 Guard troops deployed, 700 active duty Marines brought in, joint operation in coordination with ICE and DHS. The mandate: secure federal facilities, enforce the curfews, and support arrests. This wasn't some dusty National Guard unit from the backwoods. These were top-tier operators, mobilized for real enforcement. That's why I explained the act, okay? Because this is unusual. This is when things are so out of control that it just needs to be handled. And we have those abilities to handle it. We should never need to allow these violent protests to ever continue. We have what it takes to stop them, locally and federally. I mean, these guys weren't handing out water bottles, okay? That's my point. They were locking down streets, protecting ICE convoys, and supporting lawful detainment. What did they do exactly? Just so you know, I'm trying to give you the information. They enforced curfews across 6 different districts. This was not optional. Major streets were shut down, checkpoints established, military vehicles repositioned throughout LA by 7 p.m. sharp. So anyone outside without clear intent or their identification, they were escorted out, or taken in, for that matter. And so that you know this clearly, no more ignorance, this is not martial law. This is control returned to a city that did not have any control. All right? It also supported federal facilities. I mentioned that, specifically ICE field ops. ICE wasn't just conducting raids, guys. They were also targets in this. In all of the chaos, things turned on law enforcement and they became targets. These are the people that try to keep criminals that come from other places out of our country. They have no loyalty to us. There were confirmed attempts to breach these detention centers, maybe free the people that had been detained. Federal agents were boxed into properties. Not okay. Support staff and transport vehicles were pinned. Again, allowed in LA. The Guard was tasked with very hard defense here. Everything was a mess. They needed blockades, line coverage, transport clearance, immediate arrest support. No crowd interference, no negotiation with mobs. This is where the shift actually happened, from chaos to containment. Before then, it was out of control and anything goes. If you had a business there, good luck to you. No one's coming to help you out. Now, coordination with LAPD, okay? But without waiting on LAPD. This is critical. LAPD did not lose their authority, but they were no longer the top chain in this when this happens. Because this happens because the LAPD apparently could not stop it, right? It was still going on. Joint command centers got set up here. But final say on curfew operations and riot response and detainment zones, this all came from the federal side at this point. If the locals aren't doing it, the federal will step in to save the day, save the companies and streets and cars from burning to the ground. They did that and it worked. Because when you centralize power in a crisis, things do happen, right? When you wait for city council votes and the stalling that I talk about all the time, things are allowed to burn. And the visuals. Let's talk about all the content that we saw or didn't see. What did you see? A lot of things. You didn't see any rolling footage of Guard units moving in formation. No wide shots of arrest support. No real-time tracking of curfew zones or perimeters. You didn't see any of the security or safety in action. And these are things that Americans tend to observe and feel better. When we see a criminal arrested, it makes us feel more safe. That's the culture of our community. But we weren't shown those things. Here's how we got this under control. Here is what we did. And why is that? Well, I mentioned it earlier. There were film crews there, but not everyone was allowed in. The footage was all managed. There's a ton of content, but what we got to see was managed. The media pivoted hard. I mean, the moment enforcement succeeded, the entire narrative changed. Did you notice? Suddenly, the story's not about ICE anymore, all right? That was the whole outrage. Now, it's not even about families, right? It's not even about protests, which was the entire event. It was about federal overreach. It all has shifted now. You will forget about the riots. You'll forget about the burning cars. You won't need to see that on TV anymore. And they're just going to talk about how the federal government has invaded the state and overtaken it. Is that what I just explained to you? Remember, ignorance is spreading. Here is what they didn't want to show you. The National Guard physically securing government buildings because they had to, and transport convoys. The U.S. Marines positioned near key intersections. We didn't get to see that. Loaded for readiness, but restrained. Guard personally assisting in arrest processes and facility defense. We didn't see any of that. We didn't see any of our defense in action. Street-level curfew enforcement that actually kept crowds from returning. We didn't see that. This wasn't messy. This was very precise. And most importantly, it was very legal, so don't worry about that. All okay in our country. And let's talk about why that mattered. It matters because this wasn't just an optics win for the administration, okay? This is a message, and not just to LA, but to the whole country. The federal government is involving themselves in these out-of-control things. I don't know. I mean, you have to remember around COVID, right, when cities were burning. Minneapolis and Portland and other places just on fire, and it just was allowed to happen. And so I think here, right, they're saying to us, if your state will not protect you, the nation will. And this is a very clear message, and it's very strong. That hit harder than any press conference we saw, and people felt it, right? I mean, this was an instant hard, whoa, what happened here? Especially in cities watching from the sidelines. Cities that saw these riots and then saw the quiet and wondered, hey, what changed? What just happened? Well, here is what changed. Federal authority did not ask. It acted, and action ends chaos. Now we're going to see and hear this lawsuit. But I just explained what happened. Why did California flip? Well, because it worked. And if it worked, it meant they were no longer the ones holding the wheel, right? Make no mistakes, LA didn't de-escalate, all right? They did nothing. That is what we need to know. These buildings that are broken, products that are stolen, people's lives changed forever. That feeling of invasion, that extreme feeling and sense of fear of being invaded, that was allowed to happen on California's own people. This is terrible. We know we have police and authority that can stop this kind of violence. Why was it allowed to continue? Why? In the moment that everything was de-escalated, the narrative control shifted. It shifted away from California's leadership and toward Washington at that point. And so the federal government came in and saved the day. Well, that just isn't allowed. Not in the narrative. And this is just, you can watch it happen. It's happening right in front of you. And here we have the lawsuit. Newsom has sued. He did not complain during the fires, though. He did not challenge the chaos. He waited until everything was over. After the federal government was allowed to calm everything down, because Newsom doesn't want this to go on forever. That wouldn't work either. But now he's filing paperwork. This lawsuit wasn't about protecting citizens. It's about reclaiming the storyline. This just can't fly. No. Because if the president can do this one time, he can do it again. Stop violence. And the next time, they wouldn't be caught so flat-footed. Why does that matter? Well, this lawsuit isn't really about LA anymore. It's about setting precedent. Can a state reject federal intervention in a declared emergency? Okay, that's what this is about. The state wants to do whatever it wants, and that's okay, except for when there's violence and burning local businesses and burning cars and police cars. I mean, when do we draw the line? If the courts side with Newsom here, it will limit future executive action, and that is the point. It weakens the federal response in real-time crisis. So if your city is burning to the ground, do you want the option of someone coming in and stopping this if your city won't? That is the question. Newsom is saying, no, I don't want you to come in and stop this burning, even if we can't. We have to decide as a people what's okay for us here. Personally, I don't need my city burning to the ground, and if it is, I don't really care who stops it. I would like it stopped. People own businesses. We shop there. Our kids go there. No, it's not okay for cities to burn to the ground. Investments, lives. When do we draw this line? What is okay? I'm asking you. Is it okay to finally stop this mess? And Newsom is saying, no, it's not okay. We don't want you to stop whatever's going on. If we burn our whole state to the ground, you cannot come in and save the day. That is what this lawsuit is about. It's not about law, though. It's about leverage. California didn't lose its city. It lost an image of being alone and rogue and able to do what it wants, and it wants to fix that image. But that would come at a major cost. That's what it's fighting for now, okay? It wants to have its own abilities to make its own decisions, whether that is good for you or not good for you, with no one coming in and trying to stop the madness. The National Guard and Marines here were not props. That part was not a show. They were not deployed for your entertainment. They were sent in a very serious way to restore order in a city that had fallen into complete chaos and destruction. And they did stop it. And no one wants to say it because they're going to get, just beat on, right? It breaks the narrative. The federal government cannot involve themselves in California. That is it. No matter if we are burning to the ground. Is that how we want it? Isn't California already burning enough? This all proves something very uncomfortable. Federal power used decisively and lawfully can actually end chaos. We just saw it happen, and we're dealing in facts. It can do it faster than any slogan or any movement or any influencer tells you that they can, and that any media cycle ever could. It's just a fact. Think about it. Take a step back. We go to war. We are able to do things, certainly able to stop a riot and a burning city in our own country. And that makes certain people nervous, and not because it's wrong, it's because it worked. But why is stopping the burning of a violent crime, right? Burning the city, businesses, people. Why is it uncomfortable to stop that? And so the next time someone tells you this was militarized suppression, ask them why the city went silent the moment boots hit the ground. I mean, everything went silent. Ask them why curfews suddenly held where they couldn't before, mysteriously. Why the riots stopped suddenly when they were just so bad they couldn't be stopped. Why there is no new footage of crowd surges or clashes or chaos. Ask them what success is supposed to look like, if not this. Isn't our goal to stop violence, stop crime? The streets are calm now, and not because LA leadership demanded this or took care of this. It is because the country stepped in and said, hey, this ends here. And it did. And hey, guys, look, I know this is a lot. I know this episode has been heavy already, and I'm moving fast. But don't get overwhelmed. We'll talk about this again. You don't have to memorize the legal codes or track every play. Just take it in and breathe. And just start watching things a little bit differently, a little smarter. Okay, this was not random, and it is not over. The lawsuit between Newsom and the administration, it's not about what's already happened, guys. Can't say that enough. It is about who controls what happens next. And they're hoping they've planted your emotions right where they need them to be. But you need to stay smart. Don't pick a side. Pick what is right. What happened here is that California did not want the National Guard. That is clear by the lawsuit. We didn't want you here. We didn't need you here. They didn't want the enforcement. They didn't want the image of needing to be rescued. That's really what this is about. They wanted this to continue to play out until they called the shots of when it would end. But the federal government ended it early, and they looked like they had to be rescued. They don't like that. And now they're using the courts to try to lock the federal government from ever doing this again. I've already explained that to you. This argument will be framed as constitutional. Watch for it. Sovereignty, states' rights, the federal government's taking your rights in your state. Watch for this. No one's taking your rights when they come in and stop your city from burning. Keep it clear. Remember all the noise. They will change this message 1,000 times. If you think it's okay for the federal government to stop your city from burning, if the local authorities cannot or will not, that's what you need to know. They weren't doing anything else. We need to keep it clear. Underneath all of what they're doing, the real issue is control of the narrative and control of the jurisdiction. If California wins this, future federal deployments could be blocked or delayed in moments of real crisis. And if you're in California or have loved ones there, that means they're not going to be taken care of. That's the real goal here, not to push back. It is to set a precedent that limits the country's ability to respond to its own emergencies. I don't know about you, but being tested during COVID with all those burning cities, that didn't make me feel secure. I don't want to see that ever again. And if we take this away from the federal government being allowed to come in, and notice the federal government did not go in and help during those times. Those things weren't shut down until they needed to be shut down. That was a test, and we allowed it. Again, the people have the ability to come together and say what they need to say. All right? But if this precedent sticks, okay, in California, do not come in and save the day. The next time a city there needs help and is burning like it was, it'll burn a lot longer than this one. It won't end so fast. They may not get the help they need. More stores will burn, more people will burn, and not because the country can't help. They are more than able. Never lose that perspective. But it would be because they aren't allowed to by the state. Not take your rights. They're going to say that all day long. Your right is to own a local business and be protected. That is your right. So stay sharp out there. Watch how the media frames this lawsuit. Watch how quickly this story goes quiet. And watch who speaks up and who suddenly disappears from coverage. This was not about LA. This was about power and who's willing to fight for it publicly. We're not done yet. But for now, just sit with this. You have what you need to understand what just happened and how to see the next one coming. And what comes next here? And okay, enough about burning LA. Let's move into something else, also very confusing. The big, beautiful bill, right? It's everywhere. And no one really knows what to say. You're either upset by it, you don't understand it, what a mess, what's Trump doing, what's happening. All of these things, I mean, there's so many ways to talk about this thing, and there's so many divisive feelings about everyone involved. I mean, this thing has legs, right? It has a lot going on, and we're going to get into it right now. And let's start by dropping the act. Okay, the big, beautiful bill, I hate to tell some of you, it's not a scam. Okay, this is the truth. It is not a scam. It's not a Trojan horse. It's not a partisan publicity stunt. It just isn't. It's actually something much rarer than that. And if you don't know or don't remember, we don't take sides on this podcast. We're here to give you the truth. I know anything with any administration these days is very sensitive, but we need to look at this for what it is and get those thoughts out of the way. Okay? Because we need to understand this as a people instead of running around reading tweets and not knowing anything. Okay? This is actually a very serious attempt to try to hold this country together before the bottom falls out. And that is the truth, whether you like it or not. And you don't have to like everything in it, by the way. It's a big mesh of things that need to happen to keep America, America. The saddest thing that I've seen in weeks is actually how fast Americans are tearing this thing apart. I mean, and not because they've read it, because we know no one can read it. Not because they understand it. You'd have to read it to understand what's going on. But because they've been trained to hate everything that sounds like structure. Big, beautiful bill, hate it. Oh, God, get rid of it. What is it? Oh, it's got to be something terrible. I mean, these are programmed and conditioned reactions to stir up divisive chaos, really. We are a country addicted to panic. Really, we just run to it like moths to a light, and we are allergic to repair. I mean, we try to actually fix something, and people just lose their minds. Now, look, though, I am also not here to romanticize this. This bill is not perfect, and it does not make everyone happy. It's filled with very hard language, long-range planning, and some federal realignments that sound rough when you hear them for the first time. But here is the truth, again, that nobody in the media or even government is saying clearly. If we don't pass something that looks like this, the reality is we may not stay a functioning country. That is where we are at. This bill is not about applause. It's about survival. And survival doesn't come in a pretty box with bipartisan bows on it. It comes through very hard choices, clear red lines, structural correction. Whether you like the sound of it or not. Really. The big, beautiful bill, it's being mocked on talk shows, memed online, right? Like it's some branding disaster. I mean, but people are loving the content, aren't they? This branding wasn't meant for you, though, okay? This was meant for history. This was meant to signal that this is the line in the sand, the last chance to pull the country back from the edge of global financial dependency, and I mean it. Black market destabilization, borderless entropy. Now, what's inside it, though? Well, you have reinforced border controls, national currency protections, long-term resource redirection, federal accountability reforms, and emergency measures for economic stability at the family level, not just corporate balance sheets. But sure, does it sound too clean? Like that just, no. But it's not. It really is not. It's messy, it's ugly, it's bureaucratic. It reads like a 900-page stack of concrete, really, not poetry. But that is what rebuilding looks like. We are in this moment where the public has become so cynical and so traumatized about government lies, manipulated narratives, and media performance that even when something real shows up, we don't even know how to recognize it. So what do? We do what we've been programmed to do. We get crazy and we rip it apart. We scream about what's missing. We throw out the whole bill because of a few ugly paragraphs that were told to us. And we demanded it be simpler, of course, or more fair, more like us. As if we're not bleeding out economically, guys, politically and socially. More fair than what? I mean, newsflash, this isn't a bill for your comfort. This is a blueprint to keep the house from collapsing. Because while you're scrolling in your feed and you're watching Netflix all night, the world's falling apart. You choose not to be a part of it. So many people choose to look away. There's only so much we can take. But we still need to understand. And sure, there are things in this bill that definitely should be debated. There are sections that could be written better. There are power shifts that should be watched. But here's what I can't ignore. This might be literally the only thing on the table that actually points in the direction of a sovereign, functional America. Because you're not living in one right now, no matter what you want to believe. It's not happening. All right, we don't want to be in a globalist puppet state or a globalist socialist fake utopia. Certainly not corporate-controlled asset farm, right? Don't need to be that. We want to be a real country with our real borders, with real protections for the citizens, with real production, real enforcement, real consequences for corruption that can take us over at any minute and has. This is the bill that could begin the reset, if you will. Not the fantasy reset, that globalists have been pushing for. I'm talking about the real reset, where the United States stops bleeding out and starts acting like a country, a nation again. But you see, the people have to recognize it first, and they have all of you running wild. People have to read past the headlines they are fed and stop reposting out of context sections and really get into trying to understand the intention here. If this bill fails, just so you know, not because it's broken, but because we were too broken to accept it, then we don't get to complain when this country just fractures beyond repair, because it's like seconds away. We'll know we had the chance and we spit on it because it didn't look like how we thought we wanted it, because it didn't come gift-wrapped, promise universal comfort. I mean, that's not what real reform looks like, guys. That's what collapse looks like, right? Dressed up in clickbait. That's where we're at. And you know what people keep asking? I mean, if this bill is so important, why is it so hard to like? Well, because it is. I mean, let's be honest. This thing is not charming. It's not inspiring. It's not even easy to explain without taking a breath and a half. This thing is dense. It's very rigid. And it doesn't feel like it was written for anyone you know, right? It's not really meant to be read like that. It's fair to ask, why does it have to be this way? And the answer is because it was written to save something that's already on fire. It's not meant for pleasure reading. We're not in peacetime anymore. This isn't some casual congressional session in an era of prosperity, if you notice. This is triage, guys. It's duct tape on a collapsing dam. This is what it looks like when a country is trying desperately to patch the holes before it goes under completely. Hard to believe, I know. I have no reason to lie to you. This is the truth. And that's the part no one wants to say out loud or even believe. America is not choosing between good and bad right now. We're choosing between collapse and control. And that's why this bill doesn't feel like a celebration. It sort of feels like a cold reset. Let's break it down. Okay, we know it's not the 90s. We cannot solve today's problems with middle-class tax relief, right, and a campaign of kindness. We are dealing now with mass-scale financial manipulation. Open borders, black market trafficking, infrastructure dependency on foreign regimes, a completely infiltrated federal bureaucracy, and public trust that's pretty much at zero. It's not a bad year, guys. This is national rot. So no, you don't get a gentle bill. You get something closer to emergency surgery. This had to be hard-coded, not debated to death, not softened with language that makes it sound like a college group project. Because if you write it for approval, you lose it in committee. You write it to survive and deal with the backlash later. Every time something like this comes up, the same machine kicks in. All right? You hear, this is fascist. This is socialist. This is a scam. This will destroy working families. This will protect billionaires. We hear it all the time. I mean, how many years in your life are you going to hear those, or have you heard those? And all of it is just noise. screamed by people who have not read a line of this document. But again, I say this in my podcast all the time. The goal here is not to be accurate, tell you guys truth. The people out there don't care about that anymore. The goal is to confuse the battlefield, wear you out. Make it so you just want to look away and not even deal with it. Because when the people are confused, you can't unify, that's for sure. When you can't unify, you can't pass anything that could threaten the status quo. I mean, how's your status quo? That's the real tactic here. If the bill makes sense, distract. If it's airtight, scream. If it survives scrutiny, question the motives of all the people behind it. And in the meantime, just said it yesterday, stall. Delay, delay, delay. Because if they can kill time, they can kill the momentum while the people get tired. That is why this bill was written to go fast. That's why it is what it is. Why it was drafted in dense language. Why it was loaded with enforceable triggers and not just resolutions and vague goals. That's what we usually get. Because they know what would happen the minute it hit the floor. They were not trying to win love here. They were trying to beat the stall. It's just the way it is played. And this is the reaction to what has been done to this country and so many people out there, maybe you. Go through every day, scroll what you can, watch TV, see your kids, see your loved ones. And everything else is just so loud and noisy and hard to deal with. You're not like that. You don't want to be a part of that. But in the meantime, that was the goal, to get you tired so you'd look away. I mean, people forget this is not a clean playing field, all right? There are entire industries, entire bureaucratic factions that are built on the failure of America to govern itself. Okay, NGOs making billions from immigration chaos. Yes, that is happening. Tech platforms profiting from all the surveillance without any regulation. Yep, that's happening. Foreign interests buying up American land while Americans argue about gender studies. It's happening right under your nose, and that one should scare you a lot. First of all, why are they allowed to buy land here? That's a whole different show. Municipal governments cutting deals with offshore developers while pretending to represent the people. That's happening also. The corruption is not theoretical, not anymore. This is happening, it is functional, and it's winning because the opposition is uncoordinated, underinformed, constantly distracted. So yes, the bill was built like a machine, and that was an intention because it has to fight machines. You don't fight a rigged system with your good intentions. You have to fight it with mechanisms. This is another reason why the bill reads like a hammer and not a handshake, okay? We're in a legal war, not a cultural one. The people writing it know that laws, not narratives, are what last. Culture shifts, right? That happens every day. Tweets, they disappear, on to the next. And movements rise and fall, but laws, those are the rules of the game. So the focus isn't emotional language here, it's legal placement. Every section is about shifting authority away from captured and compromised agencies. All right, you know why our medications are so much and why we're dependent on other countries for them? We need to get back toward accountable command structures. That's what the average reader misses when they say, this feels so authoritarian. And I get that. But they're confusing command with control. The people who wrote this know that difference. Command is structure with responsibility. Control is manipulation without visibility. This bill pushes for the first, command, a structure with responsibility, and kills the second. Control, manipulation without visibility. But it has to do this quietly, coldly, and without begging for validation. Here's where I'll say the part that gets me labeled 100 different things. This bill was written for the country. not for the public's mood. Because if you write a bill to win affection, okay, in 2025, you write garbage, or too fractured, too angry, too traumatized by the last 2 decades of lies. You write for applause, you get fluff. You write for approval, you get a 4-year patch. But if you write for survival, you get this. And it's heavy, and it's hard, and it's full of things that do make people uncomfortable. But survival is supposed to be uncomfortable. I mean, comfort is what got us here in the first place. All that comfort. So yes, they knew that we all would not love this. They knew you'd hear trigger words and bail on the whole thing. And they knew that you'd listen to whatever your favorite media figure told you about and just skip any homework. But they passed it anyway because someone had to. And if it works, history's not going to remember all the tweets. They will remember what happened. And let's just be honest. If this bill does not work, or if it gets gutted, the next steps do not happen in a courtroom. It's going to happen in chaos. Mark my words. You think food shortages and border surges and media blackouts and organized unrest are bad now? You feeling uncomfortable now? Wait until the economy cracks one more time. But this time with no plan ready to go. That's why this bill does not really feel optional here. It feels final. It is the last non-violent, non-theatrical, non-extreme option. Because everything else past this point gets uglier, guys. This was the blueprint to steer back from the edge without declaring emergency powers or military lockdowns. That is why it is so damn structured. That is why it reads like a defensive playbook and not a political ad. So yeah, it had to be this way. Because we're out of time, guys. We're out of time. We don't need any more beautiful things. We need functional things. We're out of patience for politics. We need performance. We're out of illusions. We are ready for reality. Aren't we? This isn't about liking every word. It's about understanding what's going on, this war we are in for America, and knowing that this document is armor, not decoration. And all right, look, I don't do this part for drama, but I do need you to hear it. I'm not here to scare you for clicks. What I'm about to say, though, should scare you because it is very real, like everything else I bring to you. If this bill fails, not because it's broken, but because we all let it be destroyed by all the noise and confusion, tribal politics, the consequences are not going to be slow on this one. They won't be abstract. They are going to hit. And you will feel them in your wallet, your neighborhood, your day-to-day life. This isn't a guessing game. This is a warning, because the next version of America is not going to be decided by a ballot box or even a headline. It's going to be decided by whether or not we fix the leak before the system floods. And if we don't, I just thought I'd share with you what will be waiting. The economy will fragment. I mean, not crash, fragment. That would mean dual economies, guys. One for the connected, the protected, and the globalized, and one for you. You've seen it in other countries. It's going to happen here. No joke. If this bill does not lock down supply chains and protect national production, we're heading for a world where grocery prices will triple and no one will fix it because it's going to be global. No one's going to care. Real estate gets bought up by overseas buyers. It's happening now. Locals will get pushed out into permanent renting. Yeah, you don't deserve to own a house. You're just taking up all that good land. What are you doing? And domestic goods, yeah, well, those are going to disappear and be replaced by foreign knockoffs. Zero regulation. You think your food's bad now, you're not even going to be able to eat. And you probably won't be able to farm because you're not going to have any land. So, yeah, you're probably going to die at like 40. I don't really know. This is not theoretical. We've already seen the dry run. Did you notice? And the next wave is not inflation. It is separation. You will be priced out of your own country. Do you feel it? And crime, well, that won't be contained anymore. It's just going to be absorbed. You're getting us ready for that right now. If the law enforcement framework in this bill gets gutted, here is what's going to happen. Police walk-offs will accelerate. Federal agencies will stop coordinating with local jurisdictions. They'll be on their own, run wild. Prosecutors will ignore repeat offenders again and again. And again, like they have been doing. That has already started. This stuff has already started. And then it will just go into full effect, like immediately. Citizens start defending themselves because no one else will, but who will be listening? At first, it's just going to look like increased tension, kind of like what we're all feeling now, right? We're getting ready. Then it turns into vigilantism because look at LA. Is someone going to do something about this at some point? People are being pushed. And then full urban retreat. And it's not just going to be LA and Chicago and Portland, okay? It's going to be places you never thought it would reach. Because this thing is going to go everywhere. You're not in some special area. Once protection becomes optional, guess what else becomes optional? Your peace. And, of course, one of the most overlooked sections in this bill is the regulation of foreign-backed crypto laundering and high-frequency platform manipulation. Yeah, that's a mouthful. See why the big, beautiful bill doesn't sound very fun? None of this is fun. If those safeguards get blocked, guys, your digital transactions will be traceable to everyone except for you, because they'll control that. Black market money will move faster than your paycheck ever could. You know what that'll do to the world? Central banks test run programmable currencies with expiration dates. You didn't see that one coming? Yep, it's right there. And the dollar, as a trusted tool of freedom, will die. It won't look like a collapse either. It will look like a migration of wealth and power and control. But it'll all be migrating away from your hands, and it's already starting. You're going to be told it's progress. Maybe you'll cheer it on, your own destruction, because that's already happening also. Okay, then we'll talk about, the border. Another very uncomfortable thing for pretty much all of us. So many sides, so many thoughts. But without the border and the vetting clauses, resettlement programs will surge. And not to help the people, but it'll be done to replace civic identity with, of course, managed dependency. You'll get what you'll get, you'll be told what you're told, and you'll deal. Okay, LA is coming to your town, and no one's going to be standing there looking at you. You'll be on your own. Towns will be rezoned. Federal housing contracts will be issued without any local input. No one will care anymore. Entire neighborhoods will be redefined by demographic quotas. No more community votes. And a new class of citizens who owe their survival to federal control. That's what'll happen, not freedom. This isn't about immigrants, guys. This is about engineering a new social base that doesn't remember what it means to push back. Are you forgetting that as a public, you can push back? And the middle class, well, this is already being thinned out by inflation and regulation and cultural division. You feel it, and you are almost to the end. It will finally break. Not with a bang. It'll all happen with silence. And then, of course, truth will fracture into chaos. And that's what I'm doing here. The truth is fracturing into chaos, and that is why this podcast exists. And this one's kind of harder to describe, but you'll feel it first. I'm guessing you kind of feel it now. That's why you're listening to this podcast. For the truth. If the structural integrity reforms inside this bill do not go through, the ones meant to audit government messaging platforms and limit digital surveillance abuse, and reassign chain of command failures. Okay, the things that we take for granted that we assume are there and they'll always be there and oh my God, it's America. Well, that is not true anymore. Okay, because here's what'll come next. You are not going to believe the media, which I have a hard time figuring out how you can even believe them now, even though there is some truth in what they're saying. You will not trust the platforms. Again, they're already messing with you. You're going to question the footage. That is already happening. And you will doubt your neighbor. And that's happening too. Do you see how this is already happening? And soon everyone will be this way. And that's exactly what they want. Because a population that does not know what to believe, they can't be told anything. Nobody needs to lie. They just make the truth impossible for you to find. And they make you think you can do nothing about it. I'm here to tell you that is not the case. The people have the power. I say it all the time. But they're dumbing you down. And without that, yeah, you're going to live in a nice little rented space, coordinated probably by the size of your family or maybe even your size. That's how they'll decide which space you can take up. Because that's where we're headed. And of course, lastly, if this bill does fail, the people who kill it, the ones that are at the top making it fail, they're never going to take responsibility. No, they're going to turn it all on you and say, hey, you didn't vote hard enough. You weren't paying attention. You weren't active enough. You were ridiculous to buy into all that misinformation. And unfortunately, you didn't organize. And so now it's all done. The chance is over. Because once this chance is over, there is no America in this way ever again. We are run globally. And someone else can decide your worth, what you get to do, and where you get to live. And this will work. Because when all the people are exhausted, they're going to believe anything that sounds like clarity because slowly everyone's going insane. I'm here to tell you not to fall for it. I know what I say is hard to believe, but I'm here doing it. I mean, what's happening is not your fault. But now what happens next, that is a different story. That you are partly accountable for. It can be your responsibility if you are awake. It's a moment to act like a country again. Not a fan club, a divisive, I like this person. What is that? None of that stuff matters. It doesn't matter in our world today. Who cares? The world's going down and you decide if you're going with it or not. That's really it. There's no comment section for this. This is a country. No, this bill wasn't perfect. It wasn't even comfortable. But it was real. And if we were to let it die because we're too distracted, too angry, and too tired, or too cynical, I need you to understand the consequences. Okay, because we don't just lose a vote. We lose the last chance at peace. Okay, the last chance to reset the course without full collapse. America takes a lot of pride in the power of the people, but that's exactly what's being destroyed right now. You're tired. The news is confusing. The headlines change every 2 seconds. You need to keep an eye on what's going on and stop looking at all the noise. Remember this moment. Remember what was on the table with this. Because if the curtain drops, you don't get to say, nobody warned you. So where does that leave us? Well, not in a panic and not in a rage, okay? Because in something harder to hold, we need to be in a sense of responsibility. Because we're not waiting for a better version of the truth to show up this time, okay? This is it. This bill, this moment, this national conversation, this is the real thing. Stop following the noise. It's being treated like another episode in the never-ending culture war, but it's not. This is the hinge point. A country either pulls itself together when the pressure hits, or it does not. And we're out of time to pretend we can scroll our way out of this. If you've been confused, again, it's not your fault. This has been engineered to confuse you, to make you doubt your instincts and keep you thinking it's all just politics as usual. And isn't it nice to say we don't get involved in politics? They're using that too, because now you're not involved in anything. Because this political game is what it is. It's a game. We have a country to run. Sides don't matter. There will be only one side. Deep down, you have to know better. You felt in your gut for a while now, this is not a left or right fight anymore, no matter what you're hearing out there. They're all working together, okay? For the most part. This is about whether America stays a sovereign country, and I am not joking, or dissolves into a managed zone of the globe. And this bill, messy, heavy, unpopular as it is, it was the first serious move in a very long time to say, hey, we are done surrendering the future. And so now what? Well, you watch. Not passively, try to watch sharply. Watch who fights it. Watch who lies about it. Watch who suddenly gets very loud about everything except what's actually inside. Because that's where the truth hides, not in those headlines that are everywhere, saying nothing. And then remember this, the system does not expect you to act. You're right in the place they want you to be. It expects you to stop paying attention. Maybe that's been happening, and maybe you can change that. And not to the headlines that are routing you all over the mental world to what the truth is. Do not let them distract you. Don't let them bait you. Don't let them convince you that understanding policy is above your pay grade. Give me a break. This is your country. This is your infrastructure. America belongs to the people, not the X amount of people in Washington, D.C. or in your governor's office. To you. They work for you. It's your freedom that either survives this era or does not. That is the truth. And nobody's coming to save it but you. I mean, this was not an easy episode, guys. It wasn't supposed to be. But sometimes the most patriotic thing you can do is face the facts without flinching. So stay awake, guys. Stay clear out there. Because the truth is a threat to those who depend on your confusion. So let's keep the truth going. Stay safe out there. Ask the difficult questions. And always demand the truth. You've been listening to True Crime in the Court of Public Opinion. And I'm Alexis Knight. Thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you guys the next time.